Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with the Thursday edition of Today in Sports Betting. And as always, pretty excited to be joined by my co-host. You know him, you love him, all the way from the great state of New York. He is Scott Reichel. Scott, how are you today, my friend?
Doing well. Looking forward to covering some UFC, which, as you know, is one of my favorite sports to actually watch and cover. And we got ourselves a card. Let's start with there.
Of all of the 10 bouts, they will probably all go on as planned. That's what we're going to say, right? And we've got 10 bouts scheduled. We'll probably have 10 bouts. That's about the best thing we can say about this card. It is not one of our better cards. For those of you that hated last Wednesday's card, or last Saturday's card, really.
Last Saturday's card was very entertaining with all the knockouts and the names, even though the card itself wasn't as crazy in terms of name recognition. Of course, you had Cody Garbrandt and a couple other people for some UFC veterans, or for some UFC, non-casual fans. Well, Garbrandt was champion, so people probably know who he is as well. But for this card, your most well-known person is probably Jessica Ai, who's the main event, and Shevchenko kicked her in the head and knocked her unconscious about a year ago. So, yeah, she's entering this fight not exactly in peak form, and she's on the main she's the main attraction, so to speak, for this fight card. And you also have had a ton of title fights on the horizon that have been scheduled within the next month. This is definitely the worst UFC card you're going to end up seeing probably during the course of the late spring, entire summer. Does this count as the summer yet? Probably.
We've got about 2 more weeks, about another week.
So based on that, it's probably going to be the worst card you're going to see in the UFC in the next couple of months, because the upcoming cards, with all the news being leaked about the matchups that have already been scheduled with specific dates, definitely next level stuff. So this is definitely a little bit of a break in the intense action, which I'm not a fan of, but at the end of the day, it still fights, and stop pretending like you have something else to watch on Saturday night.
We need to work on your promo ability.
It's a matter of just, I speak for the people.
Start the video off this is going to be the worst fight card in the next 3 months. So
I'll tell you what, I speak on behalf of the people, and I just tell them what is the truth, and that's the truth.
Can we tell a little inside baseball stuff here? We were supposed to have Willie on the show, and Willie was looking over the card. He shot you a message today. What'd the message say, Scott?
He said, this card's basically terrible. I can't really provide anything here. I'm like, yeah, I feel your pain here. It's all good.
He says, I hate every bout on this card.
So I don't blame him, honestly. I usually spend, I'd say, on a UFC card, maybe I spend a decent amount of time usually going through most, or if not all the fights. I spent more time on this card than other cards, and I have less plays on this card than normally. It was just that hard to actually find consistent value in most fights where you can't even really find film on the previous fights these people were in. A lot of newcomers to the UFC. There are a lot of people who were in other leagues and they came over, and I'm looking for significant strike stats, and I'm looking for data. Doesn't exist.
Well, as a new person to the sport, I'm doing my own research, and I'm learning about organizations that I didn't even know existed. They fought 3 fights in this, organization.
You're going, oh, is that good? No, usually not.
I've heard of Bellator, and I know about the fight series and all that, but you start getting into Invictus. I know that, but you start getting into some of these, I don't know what, so like single A, double A equivalent type of leagues.
There's no association with the UFC, but yes, it's the level of competition. I'd say it would be comparable to a minor league baseball.
Right. So, okay, now that we've got everybody excited, Scott, let's get to it. Good news for everybody. We're going to go over each fight. We're going to go over some of them quickly. I know you've got some serious plays that you like, and some of the ones you're just going to give a lean, give your kind of your first impressions, and we're gonna move on. We will be back Saturday with Willie to talk NASCAR, do a little review of yesterday's.
I'd rather not do the recap of yesterday, but we got to do what we got to do.
Scott felt my pain as his drivers were close, but couldn't quite grab the brass.
No cigar. Shout out to Bell though. You're a champ. Shout out to Bell.
We'll talk about that. That was quite a battle there at the end. So anyway, moving on to UFC. This is are starting to call this the ESPN fights. This is ESPN 10 Have you seen that, Scott?
Yes, I've seen different titles. Usually the fights on ESPN tend to be some type of fight night, so you can kind of call it whatever you want to. But for the most part, yeah, you can call it UFC on ESPN 10 or just Fight Night I versus Calvillo, and which is the equivalent of UFC Fight Night 172.
You know, they ought to be truth in advertising, and they ought to say it's the what else you gonna watch 3.
That's honestly 3. I think feels a little bit too low. I feel like they're kind of at 7 at this point.
I was trying to be nice. All right. So, you know, Scott, and usually I go to the UFC site for their matchup stats and everything like that.
A lot of the people don't exist.
They've got a profile picture. That's exactly what I was going to say. For the guys and the gals, they don't have profile pictures. They just kind of have this blacked out profile, basically.
They basically should just put a question mark on his face, and then that's the equivalent, because they clearly didn't put the time to actually get a photo op with these people.
So. Right. And the first fight is Anthony Ivy and Christian Aguilera, and of course they both use the same one. There's just the one generic one, so it looks like it's the same guy fighting each other. They're just those blackout portraits. So, Scott. I got no stats on these guys. I got no record. I got no stats. They look exactly the same. I can tell you that as far as the odds go, they like Ivy here, minus 180 plus 155 if you want to take a spin on Aguilera. What do you got here, buddy? Got some thoughts for us?
Yes. So for this fight, I'm not going to have any play on it. However, I can break down the fight itself. First of all, they might look like this. They might look the same because the UFC has the same photo for both of them.
Right.
Shocking call here. They don't look anything alike when you actually see what they look like.
Fair enough.
Keep that in mind. You can easily tell your fighters apart when you're watching this fight. A couple of side notes here with regard to both fighters. Ivy's favored in this fight, as you said before. Ivy was actually supposed to fight last week in a very interesting scenario where Heinisch, the guy who destroyed Mearshart last week, was originally taken off the card because one of his cornermen tested positive for coronavirus. And in a panic maneuver, they ended up signing Anthony Ivy to a UFC contract to potentially fill in against Mearshart. Right. However, after they signed Ivy to a contract, Heinisch got retested, came back negative, and he ended up going back to fight. So the UFC signed him to a last-second deal for him not to fight last week. So they just threw him onto this card to try to get him his immediate action as soon as possible. So my guess is that's probably why he is favored, because even though he is going to be making his UFC debut, Aguilar is also a relative unknown, and Ivy at least has had a week to actually prepare for who he's going to be fighting, where Aguilera isn't really that. He's also making his UFC debut. Nobody really knows about either fighter that well, but I think you'll agree, actually having some vague idea of who you're going to be fighting a week in advance, and the fact that Ivy was already training for a fight last week should definitely help him out in this contest. I'm assuming you'll agree with that.
Absolutely. Now, Scott, were you disappointed? Because I understand you were also available not to fight last week.
If Dana White would have called me, I might have picked up the phone, but I wouldn't have fought. So we'll keep that in mind. I don't know. I don't think I would have made the weight requirement. I might have. I mean, they're at 170, and I'm a little bit over that. So right. I could have probably, shedded some pounds anyway for beach season. So I might have been able to fit in. But
you could have cut. Well, you spend the summers on Fire Island, don't you?
Something like that. Yeah, the secret is you just blast the shower on, you turn it into a sauna, and you just sit in there for about 4 hours. That's how you lose some weight at home.
I need to do that for about 3 weeks straight. See how that goes. Just slide me some crackers under the door. I'll be fine. All right, so you like Ivy at this price? Is there any value here?
Well, that's the issue, though, is that the common theme with a lot of these fights is, technically I like this guy, but I don't know anything about either fighter.
Right.
It's really tough for you when you look at it. Now, the main thing I will touch upon on why I do like Ivy in this fight, but I'm not going to take it. Aguilar's a knockout specialist. He's won 10 times by knockout, and he's lost 4 times by knockout. So this guy's been known as a go-for-broke kind of guy, where he's going to trade in the stand-up the entire time.
Wrecker or checker.
Yeah. Or he's going to either clip somebody or get clipped, and that's pretty much how his entire career has gone. Ivy has had a little bit more success as he's 8-2, so his win percentage is better.
Right.
However, he also does have 3 submission wins, so I do think that he should be able to showcase some of his wrestling prowess in this matchup, as Aguilar will try to keep it standing as much as possible. And I think Ivy could win some rounds just by getting top position and by pretty much sitting on him for about 5 minutes or so. So for that reason, I'll lean to Ivy. I think Ivy should be a favorite in this fight. Am I a huge fan of the price? No, because Ivy hasn't proved anything. So I don't think he's really worth minus 170, minus 180. But if I had to lean anywhere in this fight, I'd have to lean Ivy.
All right. Well, that's certainly a good strategy there. I'm going to go the other way, Scott. I'm going to when you have 2 unknowns fighting and you have no idea what you've got, I'm going to take the guy with getting better than 3-2 odds. So you know what? Sign me up for a little sprinkle of Aguilera at plus 155, knowing absolutely nothing about either fighter. So I think we're off and running here, buddy. All right, very good. That takes care of these 2. Now everybody else we mostly have pictures on. We're going to take a look at the featherweight bout with Jordan Griffin and Derek Minner. Jordan Griffin, he has a nice little nickname. You know what that is, Scott?
Yes, I actually do. His nickname is the Native Psycho.
Native Psycho. Very good. Very good. He's kind of a UFC veteran, 18-7-0, while Derek Minner, making just his second UFC start, 0-1-0 is his record. Griffin has a significant advantage in height, reach, and leg reach. 3 inches in height, 3 inches in reach, and 3 inches in leg reach. And not surprisingly, Jordan Griffin is the large favorite here at minus 170. If you want to play Minner, you're going to get him at plus 145. Scott, you see this one as Griffin all the way?
Yeah, so I actually do have a play on this fight. It is worth mentioning that these 2 fighters have actually fought against each other before in a different league. In the LFA, they actually fought back in 2018, and Griffin won by armbar in the second round. So they've already fought before, which is why Griffin's favored. Plus, Griffin made the jump to the UFC a while before this guy did, so you can assume Griffin's probably the better fighter, if that's not too controversial of an opinion. But the thing I'm actually going to be looking for in this fight, you could make the argument that Griffin by submission at a plus price might be worth a look. However, there's actually going to be one prop bet that I'm looking into that I actually really like, and it's going to be on Minner and Griffin under 76.5 combined significant strikes, and that is available at minus 118 on Fox Bet. Sounds like a very specific prop, and there's a reason why I actually like it. If you factor in the fight styles for both fighters love to fight on the ground.
Mission guys.
Even though Griffin is definitely the better stand-up fighter out of the 2, Griffin has 5 wins by knockout, 9 by submission, 4 by decision. He tends to take it to the ground. He likes to wrestle, and I expect him to do that. And if you look at his opponent in this fight, in Minner hates the stand-up. He has 24 wins and 11 losses, 1 win by knockout, 21 wins by submission, and 8 losses by submission. So this guy takes it to the ground pretty much every single time, right? And he will do whatever it takes to not be in the stand-up. So based on that, I think you should see a lot of just either clinching or takedown attempts just to try to get it to the ground, especially in the Apex Center with the smaller octagon, which has played a significant factor over the last couple of weeks. So I think this fight will end relatively early, but for the sake of the significant strikes, I know that sounds like a low total for 2 fighters combined, and it definitely is. But in reality, I think Minner is going to do whatever he can to take this to the ground as quickly as possible. And as it was proven in the last time they fought, both fighters have the ability to end the fight early on the ground. So for that reason, I think it'll turn more into a wrestling and a submission attempt bout than an actual punching bout. So for that reason, I think you should see a very small amount of significant strikes. And I think that number posted is a little bit too high. So I like the under on the significant strikes there. I wish I had the actual stats for their original fight just so I can total up the significant strikes. I couldn't find it. And I tried for about 20 minutes to find it, and I couldn't do it. So I'm assuming that since the first fight ended in the second round, they didn't get the 76.5. So I like the under.
Very good. So a lot of ground, no pound. What's the price on Minner by submission?
So if you shop around, you can find some different lines because FanDuel has a line available and FoxBet has a line available as well. But if you look at, you said Minner by submission?
I would be curious just to, bout ends by submission or Minner by submission. I'd like to see the price on both of those.
Okay, so Minner by submission is plus 400, but
Okay.
Griffin by submission is plus 180.
Okay.
So they pretty much think Griffin's just going to do the same thing he did last time, which is just pretty much snap his arm and just go home and enjoy some dinner. So
enjoy a nice piece of steak. I don't hate Minner by submission there. I might take a little sniff on the submission specialist there.
Well, one thing that is also worth mentioning for this fight, even though Minner has already lost to Griffin, Minner typically is a lightweight. He usually fights at 155, and Griffin usually fights at 145 as a featherweight. This fight will be taking place at featherweight. So whether or not you think that'll benefit Griffin or not, I think it probably will because he's more used to fighting at that specific weight. Maybe you can make the argument that Minner, since he usually weighs 155, might be a little bit stronger once he puts the weight back on after making weight. So there's different ways to view it, but in reality, I think Griffin's going to look more comfortable at his normal weight in comparison to Minner, and I think Griffin should probably get a stoppage. But for the sake of it, I'm going to go with the under in significant strikes.
Okay, all right. You know what? I'll take a swing at both by submission. Worst case scenario, if somebody submits, I make 0.8 units, so I'll take that. All right. So
well, the under 2.5 rounds is minus 225. So if you're going to get a stoppage, it probably will be by submission. And the odds makers seem to expect somebody's not going to make it to the third round. Okay. So yeah.
Good enough. All right. Yeah, I'll play that, and hopefully by a submission by Minner there. But yeah, I don't like it. The fact he's cutting. I don't like that he's cutting 10 pounds. That's not good. All right, Scott. Let's move on to this bantamweight bout here on the undercard is Tyson Nam against Zaruk Adeshev. How'd I do, Scott?
Better than what I could have done because I never heard of either fighter before looking into him.
Outstanding. You have a play on this one?
No. Okay. Simply put, I know that Nam is the favorite. According to most books, Nam is roughly minus 125, minus 113 or so.
Yeah.
It's usually hovering around where he's at. I saw one book that had him at like minus 180, and I'm not really sure why they put him at minus 180. But in reality, if I had to lean anywhere, I would probably have to lean to Adeshev. But I have no interest in actually playing this fight. Both fighters are relative unknowns. Nam's 18-11-1. Adeshev is 3-1. But I don't know. There's something about Adeshev that I actually kind of like. He was in Bellator for 3 fights, and he won all 3 fights in Bellator. And I know Bellator is not the same as the UFC, but in terms of the other no-name leagues we've been talking about, Bellator is the equivalent of AAA. And he destroyed all 3 opponents that he faced. He won 2 of them by knockout, and now he's in the UFC. Where if you look at Nam here, or Nam, or sorry if I'm butchering his last name, he's fought in the UFC twice, and he's lost by decision both times. So it's not like Nam is suddenly this phenomenal fighter here. I'm going to take the guy who's actually shown the ability to finish people, and I think Adeshev could do enough to inflict enough damage, especially in the smaller octagon, to show some value as an underdog. So am I going to play this? No, but if I had to lean anywhere, I'd lean to Adeshev. All
right, pick up a little plus value there. I got a plus 103, so yeah, that's interesting. All right, so Scott, this is kind of the night of the ladies. The chicks are going to be featured in 3 of the 10 bouts here, and this is the first one of the evening. Women's bantamweight bout as Julia Avila goes against Gina Mazzani. They both have nicknames. Scott, can you get either one of them?
I forgot. Sorry.
Julia Avila is the Raging Panda.
That's not bad.
My God, that sounds intimidating. And Gina Mazzani, she has gone just for the more simpler Danger.
Yeah, I was gonna say she's a one-word nickname person, and I remember listening to the nickname and just going, "What, you mail it in?" That's such a cliched just nickname right there.
I got to tell you, Scott.
Better than cheesecake. It's better than cheesecake. Tell you that much.
This girl, she has pink hair. She has both sleeves of tats. I think Danger, pretty good nickname. Looks like she could be absolute danger.
Well, I don't know who she is, so stranger danger. That's all I'm going to say.
Stranger danger.
That might be what I'm going to call her during the course of the fight, because I never heard of her before looking into her, and stranger danger sounds about right for.
Okay, very good. And the odds, they kind of go right along with Scott's.
Yeah, let's just say they don't think danger is too dangerous. That's
no danger there, as the Raging Panda is minus 625, as opposed to Danger. You can get a plus 450. Scott, this is the most extreme odds that we've seen since we've been doing this at minus 625. Anything here, you got to play on something to get those odds in a more friendly area.
I actually do. I'm looking at Avila inside the distance, which is available at plus 120 on Fox Bet there. Main reason why, if you just look at both fighters, I think there's a reason why Avila is a significant favorite here. She's been phenomenal. She has been in one UFC fight, won by decision. I can't say that it was the most impressive showing, but she was also in Invicta for a little while, did decently there. She was in some other league, which she also did pretty well in. But if you look at Mazzani, really just not a big fan. She's okay, but that's pretty much it. She fought in the UFC before several times, as a matter of fact, was 1-3, got thrown out of the league, went to another league, won her first fight, and now came back. So her career UFC record's 1-3, not exactly ideal. And if you look at her results, she's 6-3, but she's lost once by knockout, once by submission, once by decision, and she's won twice by knockout, twice by submission, twice by decision. So she is the most symmetrical fighter I've ever seen in terms of results. And the issue I have is just Avila has 3 wins by knockout, 1 by submission, 3 by decision. I know that the decision might be a little bit concerning there. If she's favored minus 500 and change, you have to assume that odds makers think that there is a significant advantage in pretty much every single area of fighting for Avila here. And with the smaller octagon, I got to assume Avila is going to take her head off. So I know that Avila to win by knockout was at minus 125, but I feel like if you're going to lose 5 cents of juice, why would you not just take any method of victory? I feel like that's probably just the safer play for 5 cents of juice there. The under 2.5 is minus 150. So people are expecting a bit of a stoppage. And if there's going to be a stoppage by anybody, it's going to be Avila. So for that reason, I'll take Avila inside the distance at plus
120. At plus money, right?
Plus 120.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I don't
take a minus 150 for the total, and you throw it in with a minus 600, and I'm getting a plus 120. So yeah, mathematically speaking, I feel like that's just a given play.
I agree. I'm with you. When you're minus 625, that says domination. That doesn't say like somebody that's going to have to go to the cards to figure it out. So yeah, that's kind of a surprising number. I think that's a good play. I like that very much. There's solid logic behind that, sir. All right, so now we're moving on to lightweight bout. Back to the gentleman as Charles Rosa goes up against Kevin Aguilar. Charles Rosa, not the most original, Boston Strong. So okay,
it's a meaningful nickname after the events that happened multiple years ago. But I feel like everybody from that area has the same nickname at this point.
Kevin Aguilar does not have the same nickname. Kevin Aguilar is Scott, do you know?
I forgot.
Angel of Death.
That's not a bad one. That's not a bad one right there.
Angel.
That's also cliche. That's pretty cliche, but
yes, but it's certainly not the board panda or Sunny Cheesecake or what. When your nickname is the Angel of Death, man, you've made a statement right there. These guys, they've a couple of veterans there are going to go at it there, and Rosa and Aguilar. And as far as the odds break down, they've got Aguilar as the favorite, minus 183. Rosa, a little better than 3-2. You can get plus 158 if you should choose to go the direction of Boston Strong. So, Scott, are we back in the Angel of Death here?
For me, yes. Am I confident about really any of the play here? Not really. But at the end of the day, Rosa, people actually saw on their TVs about a month ago, as he was the one who got absolutely embarrassed by Bryce Mitchell, as he lost pretty much every scorecard 30 to 24. He lost all 3 rounds 10-8.
10-8 every round?
Pretty much, yeah. He got absolutely demolished for he was on his back for pretty much 14 of the 15 minutes in the fight. It was pretty bad. Barrosa has been known to be a very solid ground guy. Aguilar has been known to be a little bit more of a stand-up guy.
Right.
He definitely should have the advantage on the feet in this fight, as he has 10 wins by knockout. And I expect him to inflict a lot of punishment in the stand-up game. One thing that is worth mentioning also for Aguilar is the fact that he has never lost by submission, which is Rosa's number one method of attack. So Aguilar has at least decent enough wrestling, in my opinion, to counteract Rosa. Rosa's still a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so he's still a phenomenal just talent when it comes to wrestling. But Aguilar should have the advantage in the stand-up, and I know Rosa's going to be desperate for takedowns. So as long as Aguilar is able to keep Rosa off of his back, I think that he should be able to win this fight. In terms of a play here, I'm actually going to give out a play. I like Aguilar by decision at plus 110 on FanDuel. It's plus 100 on Fox Bet. It's plus 110 on FanDuel, so I'll take the extra 10 cents there. Main reason why, Aguilar is a very solid striker, and I know that the octagon size might help him get a finish here. But Rosa, I know at some point should get a takedown because he is just so relentless when it comes to his wrestling. And I think that he should be able to stall a little bit on the ground, while Aguilar will do enough to not cause himself to get submitted. But I think Aguilar will win pretty much every single stand-up exchange. So for that reason, I don't expect this fight to be that entertaining, but I think Aguilar should do enough to get the win. So for that reason, I'll take Aguilar by decision at plus 110.
What can I get on Aguilar by knockout?
Aguilar by knockout is plus 450.
I'll take that.
Okay.
I'll take the guy that's got more than half of his victories by way of knockout. I know Rosa's going to want to go to the ground, but you know what? It's just like going all in, Scott. It works every time till the last.
Well, all it takes is one. If you take 4 plus 450 shots or higher in one card, you just need to win one to make money. People don't realize that. People just go, "Oh, you went 1-3, like awful," and then you're like, "Oh, wait a second, you made a unit in a
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's how hitting 25% of your plays can be very profitable. So very good. So you and I going the opposite directions there. Righty, and the last bout of the undercard, it's 2 more chicks, man. As Maria Agapova goes against Hannah Cifers. Hey, I've actually heard of her. Hannah Cifers, Shockwave. And I don't want to say Maria Agapova is unattractive, but for the profile they have up, it is the profile of the man for the generic UFC fighter. So
that tends to happen when you don't actually have a photo of the person. That's what I've noticed. But yeah,
Hannah Cifers, veteran of the UFC, 10-5-0, while Agapova is making her UFC debut. And I'm just looking for the odds here, as Cifers is quite an underdog here at plus 230. And Agapova, in spite of her inexperience, minus 270. Scott, tell us a little bit about this one.
So there's a bit of a backstory as to why this line is so high on Agapova. And the main reason why is because, Scott, the fact that you actually remember the name Hannah Cifers isn't surprising.
Okay.
She fought May 30th.
There you go.
She fought about 2 weeks ago and got submitted in the first round.
Okay. Who'd she fight?
She fought Mackenzie Dern. It was that female Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert who I said would win by submission. And she basically took her arm off in half of a round. So, needless to say, Cifers ended up filling in for this fight after Agapova's initial opponent stepped out. So she's actually doing her a solid by letting her fight against her without any real training camp at all. The lack of prep bothers me. And the truth is, Cifers has lost each of her last 2 fights. Angela Hill, though, is pretty solid. And Dern is still a very solid submission person. But the one issue that I do have for this fight, Agapova is underratedly 5 inches taller than Cifers in this fight, which is kind of unheard of for 2 women fighting in the same weight class. I
Okay.
think Agapova is just going to bully her. And I think Agapova, who I'm actually a fan of, I know that she's an unknown, but she's 8-1, 3 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, 2 by decision. So she has 6 of her wins by stoppage. She tends to be really good. And I know that she was in Invicta for 2 fights. She won by first round stoppage in both. She was in Dana White's Contender Series, lost that fight. And other than that, she's undefeated. So the lack of prep time for Cyphers, despite the experience, I think would be a lot to overcome, along with the significant height disadvantage for Cyphers. So you can look at Agapova at a -2 something favorite, or you can take Agapova inside the distance at +280, and that's where I'm going to go. So I'm going to take Agapova for pure value at +280 to finish the fight by stoppage at Fox Bet.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, Cypher's just 5'1", so she's a tiny little sprite of a thing. So okay.
I just think the lack of preparation time compounded with the 5-inch reach height disadvantage, and the fact that Agapova has actually been known to be a stopper and
Right.
doesn't just rely on decisions, which is a little bit rare for a woman fighter. If I'm being completely honest, most of them tend to go decisions. Yeah, I just think that if you're going to take a -240 line, I think you should probably get creative with it. So inside the distance at +280, you're basically gaining an extra 5 units of value there.
Yeah,
So
I like that play. That's picking up significant value there. All right, Scott. So that does it with the undercard. Now let's go to the main card. I guess this one will be on ESPN Plus if you want to watch that. As Jordan Espinoza, the number 13 contender, squares off against Mark the Bumblebee De La Rosa. God, really? The Bumblebee?
well, if it makes you feel any better, Del Rosa hasn't exactly been that successful in the UFC. So he might not have earned a more intimidating nickname at this point.
Well, I guess if he loses this one, he may be relegated to the slightly pesky Gnat.
Potentially, or he might just be thrown out of the league. So we'll see what happens here.
All right. So on this one, the odds for the Bumblebee, well, you can get a little bit of a price on the Bumblebee at +137 if you want to back Espinoza. That's going to be -157 here. Scott, I assume you don't sound too impressed with the Bumblebee. Have we got a play on this one?
No, I'm passing on this fight. In reality, if De La Rosa does lose, he probably will be thrown out of the UFC.
Okay.
The thing about the UFC that you have to realize that unless you're a veteran who has fought numerous times and then they pretty much let you finish your career at the UFC even if you're terrible. So that happened with Johnny Hendricks, that happened with BJ Penn. Arlovsky won his last fight, but kind of similarly, where people who used to be at the peak of the sport tend
Cowboy Cerrone?
yeah. Well, Cerrone, I thought, got robbed against Pettis, but same idea. They tend to finish their careers on, like 5-fight losing streaks, 6-fight losing streaks, and they never get fired because the UFC just kind of respects all they've done for the organizations. They keep them around. BJ Penn got thrown out, but that was because he had a street fight. He got arrested. He had a lot of issues there, so that's a separate reason. But for most fighters, if you're an unknown guy, the magic number is usually 3 or 4. If you lose 3 fights in a row or 4 fights in a row, usually they throw you out. So De La Rosa's lost each of his last 3 fights, and yeah, he has not been good. I actually remember backing De La Rosa roughly 2 years ago against Tim Elliott, and he ended up losing in that fight. Yeah, he's been in the UFC 6 times, and he's 2-4, and he's lost each of his last 3. So needless to say, not great. And Espinoza has not been much better as he has lost each of his last 2 fights. Both fighters don't really offer anything in the stand-up. It's once again going to be another ground type of bout. But for me, I'm going to pass. If I have to lean anywhere, I'd lean to Espinoza because I think he's just a little bit better. But I think both fighters just aren't that good. And for that reason, I'm going to pass.
This is like the Martinsville of UFC events.
And it's the main card.
I know. All right. So moving on. This could. Oh, here we go. We got the battle of the tattoos here. Both guys definitely well tatted up. As Andrew, is he French?
Yeah. Canadian.
So it's Touche. No, Touche.
Wait, are you talking about Jordan?
No, talking about Andrew Philly.
Oh,
Andre.
yeah. I just go Andre Philly.
His
He's
nickname
American. He's
his
American.
nickname-
I thought you were talking about Jordan, who's Canadian, who's later.
No, his nickname is spelled Touchy.
Yes, it's touchy. It's just touchy.
It's touchy?
It's not touche. It's just touchy.
Andrew Touchy Philly.
Yes, I got lost by what you're trying to talk about there. Yes, we're going to get into Jordan later. He's Canadian. Philly's completely American. He just has a very, very interesting nickname.
That's just awful. And I'm assuming you know Charles Jourdain's nickname.
Well, if my last name was that, there's only one nickname I would pick, and he actually picked it, so I give him props for that.
Air Jourdain, of course.
Air Jourdain. I mean, of course. I mean, I know what else you're supposed to pick at that point.
I just started calling you Air Reichel anyway. That'd be all right.
I guess I can't say my vertical is that impressive, so I don't know if that'll apply. But thanks, I guess.
So Touchy. He's got some UFC fights under his belt. Scott's 20-7 and 0 is his record, and Jourdain, no stranger. He's 10-2. The Canadian, the Canuck there. Philly has a significant advantage in reach, 5 inches in reach, and he is 2 inches in height, 1 inch in leg reach. If you wanted to make a small wager on this, Touchy is a pretty good favorite, -220 versus Air Jourdain at plus 185. Scott, are we going to load up on the poutine and put some money behind the Canadian here?
The truth is, I find this fight extremely difficult to handicap.
No way.
I know, it's crazy.
Where have we heard that before?
I know, but the main reason why is because of the fact that Touchy's actually been very successful, despite how awful his nickname actually is.
Right.
He's also a member of Team Alpha Male, which is known as being one of the upper class associations or training groups in the or training academies, I should say, in the MMA. So he does have pretty solid sparring partners pretty much every single day that he gets to work with, which I think should pay off. He lost his last fight to Sodik Yusuf, who I know that name sounds a bit unknown for some casual MMA fans. Sodik Yusuf is actually phenomenal, and he's 11-1. The guy's nuts. So I'm actually going to give Philly a pass there on losing that fight. You lose a fight by decision to a guy who potentially could be champion in a couple of years. I'm going to let that one slide. Before that, he won a couple fights in a row. He lost to Michael Johnson in a split decision. He lost to Cater, who beat Stevens, now a title contender. Lost to Yair Rodriguez in the past. Lost to Max Holloway. So you look at his losses at 20-7. Most of his losses have been to extremely elite competition. So I'm actually going to give Philly 7 losses a pass because about 5 of them are against serious contenders in the UFC. And Jourdain is definitely anything but at this stage in his very, very young career. Plus, you already mentioned the reach, the height advantage or the reach advantage.
Right.
So that definitely should play a factor. I do like Jourdain, though. I do think he is a very solid prospect. But in reality, I think that this is definitely a huge step-up fight for Jourdain. And I'm a little bit skeptical on how well he will rise to the challenge.
Yeah, he is coming off his first UFC victory there, a knockout of Doo Ho Choi at UFC Busan last November. He's won 5 of his last 6 fights. He did lose to Desmond Green in his debut.
Green has also won 18 fights by decision. So losing to Green by decision is definitely not exactly a shocker, to say the least. I think Jourdain's good. I think he'll be a solid UFC fighter. But in reality, I think you can agree this is a massive step up in competition for him. So for that reason, I'm probably going to have to lean to Touchy. But for that price available, I'm going to pass.
Yeah, it seems like they've got those numbers set, I don't know, 20% higher than I'm comfortable with playing. I think maybe somewhere in the -180 range or something like that. I might have a little more interest in this fight.
I can't really lay -2+ for this fight. And it's also worth mentioning that Jourdain has had 0 losses by knockout. So you can make the argument that Philly should be able to win this fight. And you might look at the stats and go, oh, we'll probably win. I don't really want to go for a method because Jourdain actually has a pretty good chin and Philly has a pretty good chin. So I think this fight could end in a variety of ways. So for that reason, I'm not really going to look for an exact outcome. And I think Philly will probably win. But I wouldn't be shocked if Jourdain pulled it out. But I think you can agree it's very tough to back fighters making a huge step up in competition, and I'm not going to be one of those guys to pull the trigger.
If I had to play anything on here, I'd probably play the over 2.5 at -175. I think there's some value there. Like you said, both guys, very very good chins. And in fact, I know Jourdain had a knockout his last time
Well, you
out.
can make the argument about Philly by decision then if you're leaning to that direction.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too. This just gives you a little bit of an out in case the fight kind of goes another way. But yeah, I'm not a real strong either way on that play. So let's man, and that's let's take a look here at the next one. Little bantamweight fight between Mirab Vashili and Ray Borg. The
But does he look familiar to you? Because we also covered him about a month ago.
Valashili?
No, Borg.
Ray Borg, yeah, the Taz Mexican Devil. I'll never forget.
Yes, I'm sure you remember that nickname.
And of course, and how am I doing there on Valashili?
Davalishvili, but
close. So we are going to go ahead and pronounce the D.
As far as I know, it's Davalishvili, but.
Okay. Well, and he's got a great nickname, especially if you're fans of Bert Kreischer. He is the Machine.
I am the Machine. Yeah, so, classic skit classic stand-up bit if you've never seen that.
Yes, if you haven't seen Bert Kreischer, watch Bert the Machine. It is available on Netflix.
Instead of studying my verbs and going to classes, I joined the Russian mafia. Yeah, good classic stuff. Classic stuff.
Well, the Machine, Scott, is expected to perform like the Machine here, as he is the second largest favorite of the evening at -375. If you wanted to check out the Taz Mexican Devil, you get a nice price there, a little 3-1 on your money, Scotty, plus 300 for Ray Borg. And this one looks like it's they're anticipating this one not lasting too very long, Scott. There's this one, if you wanted to back the under 2.5 rounds, you would be able to get plus 275 on that. So the odds makers have set this as a quick one in favor of the Machine. Do you see it the same way?
Wait, you mean the opposite? If the under is plus 2 something, they expect it to be a long fight.
What's that? I'm sorry. Yes. I grind it out. Sorry. Yes, the other way around.
Yeah. Instead of it being a short fight, it's pretty much a lock to go to a decision. That's basically what he meant.
Right. That's what they're saying. The over is -350. You're exactly right. Yeah, I had it backwards. So yeah, you want to play the under plus 275. You think it's going to end quickly?
No.
So they think this is going to go to the judges' cards. You feel the same way?
Yes. I think Borg has always been a huge decision guy. And even in the fight that I had him last where he lost, I had him win by decision, and he lost by split. I'm not even sure how he got one judge to get him a card there. I'm thankful for that one judge, but right. I thought he got destroyed. One thing to keep in mind, FoxBet does have props. So as I mentioned before, that significant strikes and stuff. They also have takedowns landed and fighter takedowns. For 15 minutes, do you want to guess what the over-under is for Davalishvili's takedowns?
For his takedowns?
Yeah, in a 15-minute time span.
1.5.
5.5.
Really?
Correct. They think Borg's going to be thrown around like a rag doll for about 15 minutes. And for that reason, the only way I could lean for this fight would be Davalishvili by decision. So that was where I was going to go. And then I looked at it on FanDuel yesterday. Davalishvili to win by decision, -200. So, yeah, I'm not exactly interested in touching this fight. I think if you wanted to go for something, if you can find a way to parlay Davalishvili in the over, then maybe you can find a way to do that.
Yeah,
but
he's only submitted 11% of his opponents. I'm with you. I don't see a lot. I don't see a ton of value there.
I think hypothetically speaking, if you really wanted to go for value, you put 1/4 of a unit on Borg by decision at plus 700. Do I think he's going to win? No. But if it's a lock to go to a decision, you're getting plus 700 for a guy who maybe, especially in the UFC with all these questionable judges after the scorecards,
right?
Plus 700 when you basically know the outcome, it's just a matter of who's going to get the win. That might be worth a sprinkle. I see that him to win by Davalishvili to win by decision is -188 on Fox, so it's slightly better. I can't touch any of those, and I think Davalishvili should take him down numerous times. But Borg's a veteran. He's been around the block. He's been in some title fights before. And I think that he shouldn't be fully slept on. So if you're going for pure value, Borg plus 700 decision, but I have no interest in playing this fight. 5.5 takedowns in 3 rounds? That's absurd. Isn't that insane?
You mean as far as being a high number?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you were guessing 1.5. He's projected to average 2 takedowns per round.
Yeah, I don't see it. He's just not a submission guy. That's not his game.
Well, he can still wrestle though, and Borg has also been known to be a relative. He has a pretty small frame for that weight class, so
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dvalishvili just throw him around like a rag doll. But if you're expecting Borg to be on his back for pretty much the entire fight, usually you tend to lose rounds if you get taken down 2 or 3 times in a round. So
Yeah.
I think Dvalishvili should win, and I think he'll win by decision. I'm not taking minus 188, and Borg plus 700 decision maybe is worth a sprinkle, but I'm passing entirely.
Okay. All right. That's certainly legit, and that seems to be the play of the day here as far
Awesome.
as saving your ducats for
Save your money for more high profile fighters in the future.
Well, maybe it's this one, Scott. How about Carl Roberson, Baby K, against Marvin the Italian Dream of Vettori? A couple of 6-footers squaring off here in this one. And as far as the odds go, if you wanted to bet of the Italian Dream, that's going to be minus 205. And Baby K, Carl Roberson, is plus 175 in this one. So tell me about these guys. Both guys have winning records. They've had some success in the past. And now they square off in this one, Scott.
So some of this might sound a little bit repetitive, and there's a reason for that. If you don't remember this, Scott, these two were actually scheduled to fight roughly a month and a half ago before Roberson ended up dropping out. So they were actually supposed to go at it a little while ago. And
Okay.
for the first fight, I gave out Vettori by decision at plus 145. Now Vettori by decision in this first fight after the delay is plus 100. So that's kind of upsetting because I lost about 45 cents in comparison to when they were supposed to fight about a month and a half ago. I'm still taking Vettori by decision. I think he's the significantly better fighter here. Roberson has been known to put some fighters away. He's been a little bit of a stopper, which definitely benefits him in the apex, especially with the smaller octagon. Vettori is so good, and he's very underrated. If you looked at who he's fought against over the course of his career, he's gone up against some pretty high-end competition, and he's fared decently well. And Roberson, in my opinion, hasn't really fought anybody of note. I think this is definitely a step up for Roberson. Vettori has 8 wins by submission, 4 wins by decision. So you could make the argument for a submission here. But if you've looked at who he's fought against, he had a draw against Amari Akhmedov, and Akhmedov is very solid as a fighter, as Akhmedov is 20-4 in his MMA career, so he's very good. And then he fought against the current champion and undefeated MMA fighter, Israel Adesanya, who was 19-0, and Vettori lost by split decision. So he actually gave Adesanya all he could handle, and Adesanya won by split decision. So if Vettori can hang with the champion of the weight class, I'd have to assume he can probably handle Roberson. So for that reason, I'll take Vettori by decision at plus 100.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah, I think that's solid. I think that's good value, and you can turn that minus 200 plus into a little positive value there. So
you can make the argument for Apex maybe submission at plus 550 because there seemed to have been a lot more stoppages ever since we talked about it on air, which we have to do because we provide information that the octagon is smaller in Vegas than in other venues. I'm assuming you've also noticed most of the fights have ended by stoppage.
Yeah.
So
to be the
yeah, you can make the argument. Maybe you can take a sprinkle here on Vettori, who has a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So maybe you can talk about that. But at the end of the day, Roberson is definitely a stand-up guy, and he's lost twice by submission, so you can make an argument. But in reality, Vettori's, at least lately, has been more of a decision guy. As if you've looked at his fights, each of his last 6 fights have gone to decision. So for that reason, I'll take Vettori by decision.
All right. That seems solid indeed. And Yeah, that's I like that. So now let's talk about the one and only. And then there was one, Scott. And this is the main event of the evening, and is the only fight where they are exactly even as far as the odds go. Both of these fighters at minus 110, as Jessica I squares off against Cynthia Calvillo. Jessica I is the number one flyweight, while Calvillo is ranked number 10. And Jessica I got a pretty good nickname. Her nickname is Scott
I'm sorry, I forgot.
Evil.
Ah, of course.
Jessica the Evil Eye.
Nice.
So yeah, yeah, it's very good. And can you imagine if you marry her and like things go bad, like, well, my nickname was Evil, so it shouldn't come.
It's kind of your fault, yeah.
It's kind of your fault.
Mm-hmm.
So, Scott, if you look at the rankings here, it looks like that should be about that should go Jessica I's way, but there's a couple of strange things about this one, and one of them is the weight. So you want to talk about that?
I'll let you do it because you brought it up.
Well, this is another one where I is more comfortable. Her normal fighting weight is at 135, and Calvillo is going to be checking in at 115. I'm not sure where they're going to fight this. They're going to fight this at the flyweight women's weight, which that is going to be 115, right, Scott, or 125?
No, it's gonna be 115.
That's what I thought. Okay, so Jessica I is going to have to is dropping 20 pounds to fight this fight, and I'm guessing that's why the odds are going to be.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. I apologize. Flyweight's 125. Woman.
Okay.
My apologies.
So she's only cutting 10. That makes a lot more sense. But
my apologies.
Oh no worries, no worries. I can't believe I got one right. So yeah, that was so yeah, it's a situation where Jessica I is just basically a decision girl. 71% of her fights have gone to the judges' cards, while Calvillo is pretty well evenly stretched across there. 25% by KO, 38 by sub, and 38 by decision. So, Scott, I don't know. You got a feeling in this one? The over under this one is 4.5, as a lot of times with the women's fights are, and the over is going to be get you minus 200. So this one is expected to go the distance. Is there any reason to think it won't?
The only reason why it won't would be the smaller octagon. You make the argument that you might be more likely to see a stoppage. For the sake of the fight itself, I mean, it's kind of interesting because I fought in the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship against Shevchenko and got a head kick knockout loss in humiliating fashion before bouncing back at a catchweight bout because I missed weight. And, catchweight was 131, flyweight's 125. So she missed weight by about 6 pounds. Okay. Not exactly ideal in the circumstance, and now she had to lose the weight again. So she has been very good in flyweight during her career, but you have to wonder at this point, after being roughly 6 pounds over in her last fight, is she really going to be able to duplicate her former form at the age of 33 against this up-and-comer? I think this is a very fascinating fight. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean from a fan perspective, but you don't think it's a little bit weird that the number one contender is roughly even money with the number 10 contender?
I know, man. That's I was kind of looking for reasons there, and the weight thing is certainly a factor, but the fact that you've got the number one contender fighting the number 10 contender for even money, something smells fishy, Scott. Something smells absolutely fishy.
Well, I remember a week or two ago, I ended up giving out Chikagian to beat Shevchenko, the other Shevchenko, at plus money. And she was the number one contender, and Shevchenko was like the number 6 contender, and Shevchenko was the favorite. And I was just thinking, I can't really agree with this. I think that Chikagian is the better fighter. In this case, I'm probably going to pass. Is it Bush League if I pass on the main event?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So based on that, I'm probably gonna take Calvillo. I'm going to go with the underdog here if I had to make a choice.
Okay.
You can really make the argument either way, but something about that line looks extremely fishy to me, as you just said.
It feels like a sucker play to take the number one contender at even money. It really does.
It really does. It feels like they're kind of daring you to take it.
Agreed.
And just a quick question: did they do the weigh-ins for this thing yet?
Was today Thursday morning as we shoot this?
Yeah, they do it later on Thursday, right?
Yeah, they'll do it this afternoon, right?
So yeah, my advice to you would be wait until the actual weigh-ins,
Right.
because there's a chance that I misses weight again, and these lines can potentially move. So my advice to you, it might not really matter because by the time this actually gets uploaded, though they would have done the weigh-ins already.
They'll have the weigh-ins.
Just keep in mind, if I is overweight, I would probably lean to I. But if I makes weight, I would lean to Calvillo.
Okay.
You have any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a solid strategy. I think that's solid. I think that's a solid strategy. Absolutely. So yeah, definitely check those odds could definitely change this afternoon, and most likely will change. So,
but are we both, assuming she makes weight, are we both on Calvillo just solely because of the sketchy line?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. When Vegas tells you something, you need to listen. That's usually my strategy.
So, it looks like they're daring you to take I, and usually when that happens, taking the person usually results in a loss. So
yes, I totally agree. I'm going to go so far as to make an actual play on Calvillo right now. And
once again, fully depending on I's weight for the weigh-in, but yes.
Yeah, I don't even care.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Because I could lose value. So I think.
But you won't lose value because if I's overweight, her line's gonna drop dramatically. If I misses weight, she's gonna close roughly -150, -160. It's just a fact. Missing weight in the UFC is such a huge advantage if you're overweight.
Right.
People don't actually talk about it. And there's a reason why, in order to incentivize the other fighter to actually continue fighting, if you're overweight, you have to forfeit roughly 33% of your money for the fight. It's because you literally have to pay the other fighter to almost accept this loss in exchange for more money. And people might wonder, well, what's the big deal? They're both going to gain weight after the weigh-ins anyway. That's not the point. The point is that both fighters have to stay in the sauna for 3 hours at a time, and their bodies are going to be exhausted from all the weight cutting. And if you don't go through all of the weight cutting, your recovery time will be a lot better if you were slightly heavier during the weigh-ins than your opposition. So for that reason, if I's overweight, then that means she didn't fully cut the weight and she should be able to recover to her normal fight weight, a lot easier. So I definitely think that if I misses weight, you should wait until right before the fight to actually take Calvillo if you still wanted Calvillo. But if she makes weight, I would probably take Calvillo at this current number.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that quite a bit. I think it's a solid play. All right, very good. Okay, buddy. Well, we made it through it. It was again not our favorite card, but the good news is we have a lot of good cards on the horizon. So we just need to make it through this one, and then it's going to be a lot more exciting, a lot more fun stuff, and probably a lot more wagering will be going on with our next few cards. So basically, Scott, even though this isn't a pay-per-view, we're kind of advising people if you have any other plans you could make for Saturday night, don't feel bad on missing this event is pretty much the takeaway of this video, right?
For the most part. In reality, you could always record it and then just go back to it later. But I'm going to be watching it. It's on my birthday. It's fitting that the UFC has the worst card of the year on my birthday. So I don't know what that's supposed to tell you.
Well, it is a pretty terrible birthday, too. It's 23, so that's...
it could be worse.
Well,
I heard a rumor, though, that you only turn 23 once. So I'm trying to make the most of it.
22, 23, 24, those are pretty much the boring birthdays. You turn 21, that was the big deal. And then really nothing happens to your 25, then you get a break on your car insurance.
I was going to say 25, yeah, you could actually start getting some car insurance deals. So,
yeah. But that's it, buddy. After that, it's black balloons every 10 years.
I mean, that's a little bit more pessimistic than I hoped it would be, but I mean, I'll figure that out in, I don't know, 12 years.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, good enough. All right, guys. Well, that was certainly a show. We've had a lot of shows, and that was one of them right there. Scott, as always, thanks for your brilliant insight on the UFC. I know this has been a passion for you for quite some time now, and I always like sitting at your knee, as it were, and learning all about the UFC as I'm a late comer to this sport. So thanks very much for sharing your insight with me and everybody else today.
Yeah, I'm always available to talk UFC, and yeah, overall, hopefully, even if the names on this card aren't the most recognizable, hopefully the knockouts and all the finishes will be memorable.
Right?
So that's really all you ask for. Even if you have no interest in any of the fighters, if you're watching a fight, you're usually hoping somebody isn't able to make it out for all 15 minutes. So based on what you've seen in this venue in the last couple of weeks, we should be seeing some stoppages that are a little bit unexpected.
All right, that's good. That's good words of advice. By the way, Scott really means that about he is available to talk UFC anytime. We're going to put his phone number in at the end of this video and just give him a call. Talk UFC anytime. Doesn't really matter.
Or if you want to wish me happy birthday, I mean, you could also do that.
Or wish him happy birthday. We're going to do we'll be shooting NASCAR for your birthday, so that'll be fun. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Scott, what are we doing tomorrow?
We are going to be talking about wrestling.
WWE, baby. That's right. As the card, the Sunday night event, it is a pay-per-view event. I don't even remember what it's called. You remember what it's called?
Backlash.
Backlash. That's right. Backlash. That's one of the newer ones, so that should be fun.
Better than Whiplash. Tell you that much.
We'll be talking with a good movie, by the way.
That's a very good movie.
We'll be talking with
the actual condition, not ideal.
The Dominator about WWE Backlash. That we'll be back on Saturday to talk about the NASCAR race from Miami Homestead. Going to be the first race with fans in the stands down there, Scott.
Yeah, I know that they decided they're going to fit in a couple thousand fans, so it's not going to be at full capacity, but there will be some. And yeah, definitely picked a good race to actually start having fans in. So we'll see how the race turns out.
Going to be military personnel by invite only, so don't start calling down there to Homestead to see if you can get on the list, so to speak. The first race with actual fans will be at Talladega, where they will have 5,000 fans in the stands.
Talladega being the first race with fans, though, that's a pretty good choice.
Talladega, boy, that's gonna be an expensive ticket too, brother.
I would assume as much. So
you and I ought to go down there and just load up on tickets. That's what we should do. So anyway,
I mean potentially. That's a road trip right there.
There it is. All right, guys. Well, we've had some fun as always. UFC coming up, so have fun with that. We'll be back tomorrow with wrestling, like we said. Beautiful day out there for a lot of America and a lot of the world. So I hope you guys go out there and have a little fun in the sun on a Thursday. And yeah, tune in tomorrow. Check us out. Do all that regular stuff. For myself, for Scott Reichel, for all of us over here at Winners and Winers, I want to remind you to stop by Winners and Winers. Check out all of our great content over there each and every day, written by some of the finest snipers around as far as the sports that are going on. We've got soccer guys. We've got UFC guys. We got your esports over there, the League of Legends and whatnot. So, yeah, check out all that stuff at Winners and Winers and our sister site, statsalt.com. So until tomorrow, you guys take care. Have a great day. And, yeah, be nice to each other, all right? Just have a nice little Thursday, and hopefully everybody will be back to see us tomorrow as we talk a little WWE, all right? Everybody have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.